Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I want to go over advanced concepts of officers. That's what I guess I'm going to name this video. Um, I've been asked the question many times of how to choose the best officer um, to upgrade, and it's kind of a mixed. It's kind of a let's see. Loaded question, I guess you could say, because certain officers are lower on the list than officers that, like, you want to think that all the best officers are at the top of the list and it goes down from there, but it's not true. As far as I know, I would say that most of the time it's true, and then also when it comes to what you're looking for in an officer, makes a major difference, especially when it comes to your max fleet. So, as you see, Astrid is what? The third person from the bottom. And then if we go to my max fleet, Astrid is my number one officer. And so with this video, I'll explain all that. So let's get back to officers. All right, so Astrid was one of my officers that I got as it was on one of the events, and I believe she was like, you get two officers, and then you get a third officer you get two four-star officers, and you get a three-star officer after that. Well, that officer was Astrid, and since I was always winning Poseidon, I got a lot of her souls to make her a four-star officer. All right, so when I started upgrading her, she quickly moved to the number one position, and one of the things was her skill, the common karma defense. When I changed from when I used what are these? They're refined stones for the first time. It was a huge jump in her power. Also, the cost of the cost of her upgrades are, a 21, and it takes 4,750 experience. Let's go to somebody else. Oops. Let's see if we can find a 21 in here. Did it again. Did it again. Well, this one is to get to 22, or what's that? Maybe it's up to 23 level. It's 4,200, which is still less than hers at 4,750. That only tells me that she is a great officer, and that it costs more to upgrade her than other officers. But as you see, we have 2-star, 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 2-star on refit. Of course, all these are all at 25, and she's ready to go to 41 after this, or 40 after this. But when you come up to this one, which I kind of worked down from the top down, of course, I try to focus on Astrid because she is my best officer. You see that this officer has which is a good officer. She has a lot more. I mean, she doesn't have as much equipment power as Astrid. Um, so it only leads me to believe that Astrid is a much better officer than the rest of them, um, which kind of goes the same for her too. Um, she's not nearly as doesn't have the stones, the refined stones stars as my top officers, but yet her equipment power is still higher. I think. Let's say that one more time. So, well, not as high, but she also hasn't been worked on as much. She kind of just took over Thomas's position and real quick with just some simple upgrades. And so I kind of gave up on Thomas and went with her. So let's see. Now, one of the decisions I'm trying to make is in my max fleet, we have Victoria coming in at number 5. Now, Victoria is a front row officer. Let's get back to her. So when we look at Victoria, she is a front row officer. So when the fleet is in battle in the front row, damage, 16%. So for a front row officer, for having her in the front, that's great. But I have officers that are more powerful than her, and literally I have the first 4 officers being front row. Thomas is the front row. Nancy's the front row. Amelia is a back row officer. Then we have a front row officer, and a back row officer, and he is a well, he can work as either one, but he's really not that great of an officer. He's one of your bottom feeders, I guess you could say. So as you see, I have the top 4 included Astrid as front row. So that's 5 front row officers I have. And I only have really 1 back row officer. Now, if Suzanne, which is a back row officer, she is a submarine captain. That's what she does best in, but she's also a back row officer. She'll do quite well in the back row, even though it doesn't say anything about back row. That's kind of the good thing, because the only time that you're not benefiting from one of her skills, if you don't have submarines, is this submarine intensity. That's the only skill that's not being used when you have her in the back. When you use, we'll go back to Victoria, you're losing out on 60% of damage increase by not having her in the front. So saying that, they're kind of like neck and neck when it comes to thought I had turned off notifications. Sorry about that. What was I? Where was I? Okay, so you have the positives and the negatives. So both of them have a negative, because Victoria's not going to be in the front row, and Suzanne is a submarine officer. So she's so they both have their downfalls, and I'm not really sure like which one would be better to put in the back row. Um, I would like to think that maybe Victoria might do better because, according to this list, she's a better officer. So I've really tried to consider taking everything I've invested in this officer and resetting it and using it on other officers. And I also thought about maybe investing all all these resources that I've used into Suzanne, but it's kind of a catch-22, like, or I mean, it may not be any better by using Victoria or Suzanne if they're both upgraded. Uh, I don't believe, no. So, one of the other options would be to just invest all of his resources into other officers, um, which is not like a bad idea as far as your power goes. But when it comes to doing battles for when you're doing server battles right here at your open ocean center, um, you have to have 3 different setups of fleets. So having some powerful officers in different setups is a good thing. You don't, just only betters your chances of rating higher and getting more rewards to go towards your more points to go towards the shop that they have at the end to get like fusion cores and stuff like that, so you can advance your accessories to orange accessories. And let's see. Let's go back to Astrid. So it costs more to upgrade Astrid, but the power increases are a lot higher. The equipment power is a lot higher. Guys like Manfred, I can actually show you what having a low bad officer will actually get you in power in equipment power, which is not very good at all. Like, as you see, this guy is pretty well off when it comes to what he has, which I've invested in him. But he's only at 916. We go up to Thomas, and he doesn't have as much invested in him as Manfred, but his equipment power is higher. Even Suzanne, same thing. You see, she doesn't have as much invested. It's cheap to invest in Manfred, but it doesn't give you the results that these other officers do with the same upgrades. It just costs more. So then we go up to Victoria, and you see there's a big difference. It's 300 points of power on equipment. Another thing was how to know which officer to invest your resources in. That is a hard question to answer, because in the beginning you don't know which officers you're going to end up with later on, and even later on you don't know what officers might actually build up into your like 4-star officers, which is great because they always have this event here where you can go and reset all of their upgrades and get them all back, losing 20% of them, and then invest them into another officer. So, oh, check something real quick. No, not yet. I thought I was having a new stack started, but I didn't. All right, so things that you should know. These are kind of the basics. I just should go over them really quick. If you're not going to buy your officers, Olga is a really good officer. Marcus or Ralph. Is it Ralph or Marcus? Marcus, I believe. Marcus is. Did I even have Marcus as? I believe Marcus is a good officer too. And then, of course, I believe any officer that has this saying at the bottom, with the karma, like they get a karma officer. I believe that's the same as Astrid and my other officer. I forgot her name. She was my aircraft carrier officer. Anytime you have those officers, they are officers that cost more to upgrade, but are really good officers. That has been my experience. I'm not positive on that because I have not got to Simon yet. Another one I believe is like that is, yes, it's this one here. But the only bad thing about these officers, which is the reason why I don't actually care to have them, is their skill. Harbor blocker. So the only way the main skill of this officer is good for is if he's fighting in somebody's base. If you send him out onto somebody's base to fight their fleet, or they send a fleet out and you defend your fleet, that's the only time his number one skill is effective. Where if you go to any other officer, their main skill is all fleets are granted 0.7.5 agility bonus. So with a officer's main skill being useful on every attack you do is way more beneficial than an officer that only their skill is only available when you are attacking a harbor or you're in a Pacific region like Dark Reef, any other region of the area that you're attacking. If we're attacking here, we're in ocean region. For over here, okay, what's this ocean region? So this would be. It's got to be some ocean region. Okay, maybe go to, I don't have nobody saved. Scuba Steve. Oh, wait. There we go. Wait. No. I'm sorry. I was made a mistake. Okay, so it is all ocean region. It just tells you this is a Dark Reef region. So if I attack that mine, the benefits, his skills will take effect. If I attack this guy, then his benefits will take effect, or his skills will take effect, but the other officer will have no effect at all, completely. Where the other officers that anywhere you attack, they have their skills taking effect. Harbor, so this would be Dark Region. Um, so as you see, each area that of the sea has different regions. So he's only specific to one region. Um, so the best way to invest in an officer is, if you're buying officers, you should know that most of the ones you buy are extremely good. Um, Most of my officers I paid for. Let's go back. Officers like like these four at the bottom. The first one and the third one are really, really good officers. I've never invested the money into getting them. And then so if you get those, you know automatically you should invest in those. If you're getting Victoria or Ellen or Suzanne or Thomas or um, Nancy, so those are all great officers. Astrid and Emily. Maria is a good officer. She's not as good as the rest of them, the ones I just mentioned, but she is a good officer. Oscar and uh, Manfred. Those are your low end officers. They're not really worth investing in unless you're not buying officers and that's they become 4-star officers. Then yes, you should go and invest in them, because I mean it's better to invest in something you have than not invest in anything at all. I guess you could say. Things that you could do to get good officers would be to buy souls. Marcus and Olga, you can buy their souls, and you just got to keep up with it and buy all the time. Um, when you can buy Simons and the other officer, I forgot her name. You could buy her skills and his skills, and eventually you will get up to a 4-star officer. And with regions, you will even get to her as an officer, even a 5-star officer, a lot faster. Okay, let's go see if I can close this video. Now, when it comes to positioning your officers, it all depends on what you're going to do. If you're going to attack a mission, you're going to want to change your officers. She is an aircraft carrier officer. You'd want her to be the leader of that aircraft. So we can see that her benefits of being an aircraft carrier officer help out. Even though I believe she works great in the back, and I don't know if there's any benefits from putting her in the front, if there's actually a skill that takes away from that. Now, see if there's anything else I can go over. Well, I don't believe there is, but the reason I stopped, which I was told that Shav is a great officer, is because this one skill right here, Dark Reef. Uh, for being his main skill and him being in Dark Reef, it only works in Dark Reef. It doesn't benefit for me as a whole. If you just have tons of officers and you're just kicking out money to and putting it all into all these officers, this would be a great officer to have just for attacking somebody mining on a Dark Reef. Other than that, he's not beneficial as other officers. And he might actually even have a higher equipment power than a lot of officers, but without being able to benefit of him being him being his main skill being effective, it kind of hurts. Like Emily, I'm so up in the air about her being a harbor officer that that's why I really didn't use her too often. I didn't upgrade her too often. It was mainly just so I could do missions. So that's why I'm up in the air about changing her out for Suzanne and Thomas. Used up. Well, not Thomas, but Suzanne. But I also have her equipment power being easy to build. So it's kind of like I'm up in the air about it. I haven't decided yet. Let's see these. And then things like Thomas. Thomas is a freight officer, and he's in the front row. So that would be a good officer for me. So literally, I've really thought about getting rid of him and just resetting him. Not get rid of him, but resetting him. And one of the things I'd like to go over, things like frontal attack. Let's see if I can find an officer that has a frontal attack. Okay, we can go over this skill right here. When the given fleet is doing battle with numerous inferior infantry, fleet's damage resistance effect is increased. Inferior means if she has red ships and they have orange ships, then her ships are going to have she's going to get that 12% 12% increase. Things like, I believe it's in the front row. And she is a battleship officer, as you can see. So she actually can be in the back row or the front row. Doesn't matter. It's the front row officer. Arthur is actually not that great of an officer, to be honest. It takes a lot to go and get him up there, but he made five-star officer because I was stupidly investing money in him. Let's see, but things like this skill here: when the given fleet is doing battle against hostile fleets without officers, well, how often do you do battles with fleets without officers? The only ones I know of are your Legion instance missions. That's about the only time. I'm doing battle with numerous. Let's see. Wait, I think I might have mixed that one up. Okay, commercial. I might have got that wrong. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that word up. So I kind of messed that part up. I kind of confused it with some of the other officers' skills. Okay, this is the one I wanted to do. When given fleet is doing frontal combat, fleet's dealt damage is increased by 16%. All right, now what this means is when if you're in the front row and you're attacking a ship in the front row, that's when this takes effect. If you're in the back row and you're attacking ships in the front row and there's a ship in front of you, then that is not a frontal attack, that is a flank. So the difference between a flank is the back row attacking around your front row fleet. Frontal attack is your front row attacking the front row. Maybe even, so yeah, that's a frontal attack. Let's see if I can explain more skills. So Oscar is a back row officer. Flank combat. Flank, like I said, is coming from around your front row officers. Marina is a battleship officer, and she's in the front row, but she's not as good as a lot of the other officers. So, there was something I wanted to explain so people would understand. I don't actually go and write down or prepare myself for these videos. I just kind of go with it. Okay. One of the other skills is when the given fleet is attacking. Okay, no. I now remember that's actually a ship skill. I believe that actually will end this video because I think I've covered everything. And if you have any questions, write a comment down there. I'll just do an overcap of what I talked about in case I missed anything. Investing in officers in the beginning is a 50-50 chance of actually using them in the future. You can always get 80% of whatever you put into the officer back to invest in other officers. It's hard to say in the beginning which one you're going to use. If you're buying officers, as you're buying them, you know that's what you're going to use. When you're buying an officer, you need to go and look at their skills and see how they're going to benefit your main fleet. You only need 3 for your main fleet. You only need 3 front row officers. For your back row, you only need 3 back row officers. Try to find officers that benefit you the most. You don't want 6 front row officers all in your main fleet. I realized this much later when I was choosing officers. I didn't realize until like maybe a month ago that having a back row officer would benefit. I just always thought that let's just get the best officers and upgrade them. So let's also go into officer skills and everything. When it comes to your equipment power, all that's added up, and the equipment power, um, when you to become first to attack another player, the person with the highest equipment power goes first. So you do want to have a high equipment power because that first strike makes a big difference. It's kind of like when you're doing raiders. Uh, that first strike drives them down to almost nothing. Then they fire back. It's a weaker strike because you've already taken out the majority of their ships. Even if, uh, even when you're in battle and you want the first strike because you want to weaken their fleet to where their first strike against you is not as powerful as it would have been if they had the first strike. So first strike is very important. But it doesn't mean that you're automatically going to win a battle. Let's see. I would have to say officers are. It's not the major power source. It does make a difference. I would say that officers are more of refining your power. Um, it's without having everything else up. It's not going to go and make as big of a difference as if you have like let's say that you're 100 million and and then you decide to go and invest in your officers. That might bring you up to 150. If you're if you're at like let's say 5 million and you invested all these officers, you're gonna go up 2 million. It's not going to be as big of an increase if you invest in accessories, super equipment. Let's see, things like we can get to it. Alien gyms, alien equipment. Another big one, which makes huge differences, is alien technology. What other things? Yeah, those are some of the big ones. Your accessories. You want if you go and invest in those first, and then hit the officers later, you're better off. Of course, like work on them. Don't just let them sit there idle and be at zero or at normal. But I would not spend money in the beginning on officers unless you have purchased the officer in an event. Um, if you purchased it, you're pretty sure you're going to end up using it as in your main fleet. If you're just getting free souls and you have a officer become a 4-star or a 5-star, then of course then you could do it. But as they're coming up, don't invest too much. Then let's see, can I say anything else about this? Well, one thing you should always do is when you're building officers, you also always should do the Poseidon event so you can get books. Otherwise, it's going to be a very slow process of upgrading your officer. Um, always do your expedition force so you can get the. I don't think I can. No, it doesn't show it. So you can get the points for that. All right, like I said, if you guys have any questions, I know this is a long video. It wasn't. I didn't go over with it in my head at all. I just kind of just one of the guys on server S73 was asking me questions about officers, and I figured if I did this video, it would help him out and probably take me the same amount of time to explain everything in text as it would for me to make this video. So I figured the video was better. All right, guys, I got to get ready for work. You guys have a great day. If you liked my video, hit the like button. If you want to go and get notifications whenever I make a new video, subscribe and hit that notification button. And like I said, if you have any comments, put it down below and I'll answer any questions you have to the best of my knowledge. If I can't answer it, I've got plenty of other friends on this game and older servers that I can ask and still get you the response you need. All right, thank you guys and have a good day.